I'm going to be responding to is, how would you describe in your own words your mental health problem or experiences of distress? My experience of my mental health, how would I describe it? For me, it's like a roller coaster where I'm always up and down, and it's really confusing for me and for the people around me because I really struggle with relationships anyway. I'm very close to someone and I'm very attached to them, and I don't want to let them out of my sight, to being very distant and not wanting anything to do with them. And I don't know, I'm just very push and pull relationship, if that makes sense. I pull people very close and then I push them away as fast as I pull them in. So I really do struggle with relationships, so it is really confusing for me and for the people because they won't understand what is going on. But I don't just push people away for no reason. In my head there'll be a rational reason for it, but in anyone else's head it'll be irrational, but to me the reason will be rational. A person may look at their watch and be like, oh my god, like they don't want to spend time with me, they can't wait to get rid of me, and it will go around in my head like that, where I'll turn little things into big things. Or someone could make a joke and I would take it very personally. I take everything that everyone does very personally, and I don't mean to, but I do. It's also very hard because I do get very suicidal, and when I do get very suicidal, no matter what I do to help myself, it doesn't seem to work. It helps me to manage, but it doesn't make them any less intense. It just helps me to manage just about. And every single time I have a really, really bad episode where I get even closer to going through with the suicidal thoughts, every action I take to stop it from happening becomes harder. So I really do struggle with the fact I do get suicidal thoughts, because it scares me, because I don't feel like I have control all the time. But I do have a lot of reasons to live, which makes it even more confusing to why I don't want to live. I don't know if that makes sense. Some people, when they feel suicidal, they can list all the reasons why they don't want to be here and can't list the reasons why they want to, whereas I can list so many reasons why I want to live, but none of them are enough to keep me alive. So my experience of mental health is almost like a roller coaster, where I struggle with relationships and I struggle with suicidal thoughts. I also struggle with urges of self-harm, where I almost feel the need to self-harm when something goes wrong or I don't have control, or I feel very pressurised, and it's very hard not to. So that's another thing I really struggle with, and when I don't self-harm and I don't have that control, I get very angry and irritable, and I almost need it to release all these emotions in me, and nothing is almost good enough to replace it. So I do struggle with self-harm, and it is very tricky not to, but I'm doing very well at the moment, where I haven't done it in 2 months. But it is very hard. Another thing in my experience of mental health that was really hard for me is the idea that I never really had a label that I could identify with. So when I was younger, they told me I had generalised anxiety disorder and I had depression, and I never felt that that really represented me, and I never really could recognise myself in it, because I always saw that there was something else wrong with me. By having this label of depression and generalised anxiety, I didn't feel the treatment that was given to me was working, and the professionals that I saw didn't understand, because they were certain that I had depression and they were certain that I did have generalised anxiety disorder, but I never felt that really fitted with me, and that was the reason why the treatment I had never really worked. And it really upset me when it didn't work. I wanted something to work, and I almost felt like I couldn't be helped by it not working. But then I was given the label of borderline personality disorder, and now I'm doing group therapy in that, and I feel like I can almost fit with that label. All the things that fit into borderline personality disorder I can identify with, and I feel like it is a way of understanding how I feel and what's going on in my head, and it allows me to talk to people that understand how I feel because they either have it themselves or they have dealt with someone with it. For me, that is also an experience of mental health where I never felt I was understood. I just felt like I was by myself and I didn't fit in anywhere, and there was something wrong with me. My experience of mental health as well has also been hard because of the amount of stigma around mental health, where I almost felt like I had to keep everything quiet and I had to pretend to be normal, and I had to pretend that I was okay and I was happy, because the idea of being mentally ill was scary for some people, and they would judge you and they wouldn't talk to you, and so I still feel there's a lot of stigma around mental health. So it really affected me growing up, and even now, where I'm very careful about telling people that I have a mental illness, and you know that affected my experience because I didn't seek help earlier because I was scared, and I was very careful with who I would tell and what I would tell to them, so I wouldn't even tell them the full story. So that affected the level of help I received when I was younger. So because I wasn't honest with myself almost, and because I wasn't honest with other people, I didn't receive the help that I needed earlier, and so I was almost suffering in silence. And because I wasn't telling other people what was going on with me and what was going on in my head and how sick I was getting, I was gradually getting more sick and needing a more intense level of support because I refused to almost open up early. So yeah, that was my first response to the question of my experience of distress and mental health.